that. Not too close.
Not too bad. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. And thank you very much for all those lovely people that are seeing us also on live streaming. I'm very happy to open the Draw to Perform Festival. My name is Ram Samocha. I'm the director of Draw to Perform. And it's been a while since the last Draw to Perform Festival. The last one was here in Brighton in 2018, and as I don't know if you know, but when I am thinking about doing a festival about performative drawing, I'm thinking about a subject also that goes with it usually. The last one was all about sound and mark making, and this one is more concentrated about the shift from more primarial gesture to a more layered one. So moving from drawing to painting, and from 2-dimension to 3-dimension. Of course, it's complicated to distinguish and to put in frame all those practice and to put frames on what is drawing and what is painting. But here I'm trying a little bit to understand it in the live action connection, and I hope you will see quite a variety of options of working live and working from drawing to painting. We have wonderful artists that coming from the UK and from outside of the UK, and thank you for everybody. Thank you. Quite a lot of thanks I have to say, but overall it's been a large project, 2 years of work, and I'm thrilled to open it. Maybe I'll say later some things, but this was the opening one from me. Okay, so this is the first, this time the structure of the festival is a little bit different, so I spread it on 4 days of action. We had a durational performance today of Anji, that it was in the front of the gallery, and now the evening one we have first artist Graham being here, and Lola and Yukao will be the second one. So each evening we have 2 performers giving their action. And I think, we also have workshops going on. So tomorrow we have 2 workshops, and the week after we have 2 more workshops with the participating artists. And I think I'm done. So, Ram, to you. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for everyone for coming. You could be on the beach with a beer, which I wouldn't mind right now, but it's a nice day in Brighton. As you can see, there's loads of water here. I work with water. If anyone knows my work, it's full of water, stains, building up. The studio floor is often me walking into puddles, literally. And these things change overnight. I live here in Brighton, so I live near the water. I was born near the water on Merseyside. I fell down a well when I was very small and got tugged up by my hair then, which I did have hair then, and saved. So water really is part of my life. Paper is as well. Now I work in 2 lots of paper, arches or this Indian rag paper. Now I'll let you have a feel of this because it's really strong stuff, you know. And they make this in southern India. And apparently, I've been working with it for about 20 years, 25 years, and only just realised, they told me that they were recycled Western t-shirts. And usually, like music ones, so it could be Madonna or Metallica or is in here. So if you want to pass it around, you can have a more list. It's okay. It's very strong. This rag paper. Obviously, they mush all the t-shirts up. I've seen them drying them in the fields like this. It's wonderful stuff. And I work in sections. This is a different type of drawing, really, or different type of painting. With a large picture, which they tend to be this size here, I literally draw very simply the image up first of all. In fact, I do a small one first of all. That's my guide. I haven't got a guide today, but and I overlap the drawings by about this much. Can you see? All the way around. This gives me leeway to, when they're dried, I can rip and tear the image, so you can get lovely forms of paper. And it's very visceral. And gradually build up the image. So I've even got small bits here, which I've been working on hopefully for this particular one, which are just scraps. I build these up as well. Eventually it's like a massive jigsaw, which I then stick down, and using wood glue. The backs of them are often really interesting as well. My galleries love the backs of my paintings, because they're often other paintings. Right, great. Okay. So, now, as I say, water is the key. When I've done workshops in the past, people have often said, well, why don't you use masking tape to block off the areas? And I'll say, look, you can use a ton of water, and if you don't go into that section, it'll stop here. It stops literally there. You don't even need to use masking tape. I'm always really surprised when people do things like that. But again, a very simple range of colours there I use as well. So it's more like drawing with the paint. Seeing what happens. Accident plays a huge role. This is a beautiful yellow, quite a chemical colour. Quinacridone yellow, gold. Quinacridone gold. It's amazing colour. It can go from literally really, really light to almost like a burnt sienna. It's a fantastic colour. I also use lots of opposite colours as well, which you shouldn't do. I was told at art college never to do it, but I did. I don't mind you coming slightly close if you want to look at details, okay, because these things do move around and they're a bit more interesting close up. I've had this one brush for, I think it's 25 years. And I see other people buying hundreds of brushes, and this one brush has seen me through everything.
What made you say it?
The brush? Who said that? Oh, I have no idea. I'm not very good on technical things. No, it hasn't got a name on it. I don't know where I bought it.
You used to. You used to have a name.
Used it. You're probably right. Yeah. So I can't go into a shop and say, can I have this brush, please? No, I would love it. These are little film canisters. I use film a lot. I'm definitely old school, but these are great. They're really good for doing this, which I do a hell of a lot of. Now this is going to manoeuvre around. You see, already you get things like this happening, and I like all this. I mean, it gives me lots of options going. So I'm going to. Where's that going now? All right. Okay. I'm going to move this along and then go into another one. You might probably tell now, this is part of the body, a figure. You see, these are interesting things starting to happen, you know? You've really got to trust the paint and trust the water. Some things I have to keep quiet because of concentration. Sometimes you've really got to think about what you're doing. I go to all these lengths, and then in the morning I go in the studio and find my cats laid across painting. This hers. I've had to take frames apart because people complained it was a cat hers. I thought it was interesting. I thought it adds to the work. But, you know. These are really opposite colours here working. Now this, you know, I had lecturers telling me never to do things like this.
And that's what you do.
Well, I think everything's confidence, isn't it? You know, with this you have to have uber confidence that you know what you're doing. And mind you, no one ever taught me this, so I didn't do anything like this at our college. You can see, as it's a bit warmer in here, these are the things I'm looking at all the time when I'm working. So, you see that line going? Now, where's that come from? I have no idea. But, you know, you work with this and you think, well, that's interesting. Let's go with that. This is why I have so much water, because the colour of this now is watercolour. Look at that is watercolour. Now, although this is bare, this will fill in. It will come over. Now I'm going to try some details.
Is that acrylic you've used?
This is all watercolour.
Okay.
Which one?
That in the tubes.
No, all watercolour. Everything. That's all I used to. I had 10 years of working acrylic on canvas, massive ones. And then I changed literally overnight. I got fed up with it. And I lost collectors, critics, and everything. They dumped me overnight. And watercolour then was considered very amateur flowers, you know, landscape. And I said, no, I want to reinvent it. And it took them another 5 years to really come back on board again. That's an interesting. It has a life of its own. As you can see, the actual painting part of this is quite minimal. It's what's doing the work for me is the actual water. Unfortunately, it takes ages drying, so I don't know how much you'll see at the end of this. That's the unfortunate thing.
You can turn off the air
Oh no, I'm talking 2 days.
You should have put a hairdryer, shouldn't you?
No, then the paints will move.
That is from effect.
Well, it's doing it already. Also, if they dry too quickly, you won't get the nice, nice things happening. You know, I had a residency in southern India once, and I had to change style because they were drying so quickly. You know, I couldn't get to grips with what I thought, what's going wrong? And it was so hot. Sure about this lump. Make this mistake into something.
No.
Now, a much more detailed, tricky bit. Because if you have loads of loose areas like this, you then need to hold it together. And this face is going to take a little bit more concentration. I have the loosest of drawings underneath these. I don't waste time with drawing because I know anything can happen, so I don't bother.
So usually in your studio you're working with the music or silence or...
I usually work playing music, yes. And when I've done this in the past, in the films you saw, I've worked with David Rhodes, who's a guitarist, and we do live performances, and the projections are all around with them. And they're big crews.
And usually it's music or talks?
Yeah, he's playing live to what I'm painting.
No, but when you're working in your studio, it's more radio or more
No,
music?
Music, yeah. I come from the time of art college when all your friends were in bands in the 60s. Everyone was either you go in a band or you go to art college, or both. This is called, what I'm doing here is called wet on wet, because I had to do this for this particular time restraint, obviously. But I normally, well, I work two ways. I normally would put layers down, wait for those to dry, and then go and do another layer. So it's layer upon layer upon layer. This is a slightly different way of working. Much more chancy. Some nice things start to happen. You can do, whether it's my eye or not, I know often how the water's going to go and what's going to happen. You can just see things shaping up slightly. It's quite common. I go back in the studio late at night to move things around, to check on everything, because paint's just moving all the time. You never know what's going to happen. So this bit overlaps onto these two, the central core. Which I'll, if there's time, I might be able to show you. I'm leaving these here because I need to, if I put water in there now, it's just going to bleed completely. So I need to let that dry a little bit. See, it's moving all the time now. Mm-hmm. My head, intuition, literally, and just feel it, see what feels right. I work with quite a limited range, to be honest. I don't have that many. I will work back into these in the dry because I might put a whole layer of different colour over it, so I will change things later on. But I mean, most of the way I work is feel. I mean, it's the word I tend to use all the time. And I say to my wife, "Has it got a feel?" And I don't know how to describe that better than what I'm saying. I know what I want, but if it hasn't got it, if it doesn't communicate that way, I get rid of them. I mean, this is why I use the backs of everything. And the gallery is then say, but the thing on the back is really good. Why are you getting rid of it? But if it's not right, it's not right.
So whose portrait is that?
It's a model I was working with for a long time, so you get to know the. I do get to know Okay, this will be the right shoulder, top. And I quite like it when you get these areas which are completely incongruous. You might get a darker bit aligning that one. And that makes it, when you put it together, it really gels. If you go too much, it looks awful. So you've got to have a bit of one in the other to make it link in. Right, so that will be there. I'm going to move some of these so we can have a look at them. Okay, over here. Are we off for time, Ron? Where is it? Yeah, okay. You started late, didn't you? Okay, so this is obviously the arm here, and she's like this. Yeah. In fact, at the end, it could be male or female. Often they work like that. For the very they get very ambiguous in the end. But this was female model. Now I think it's going to need something stronger here because it's a bit insipid. As you can see, it 25 quid a tube. It's an expensive business. Watercolour is not cheap. Anyone who likes it will know. Especially the way I use it. I did ask Winsor and Newton when I changed to this because I was worried about the fragility of watercolour. And they said the way I use it, nothing is going to change for over 100 years. So, well, good. Because it's the first thing collectors say, you know, how long, you know, as long as you don't put it in the light, but you shouldn't put any paintings in it. You know. And I've had other collectors denying that they were watercolours, even though I painted them, because they end up not looking like watercolours. So, taking convincing. This is nice. This is, you know, the way that's gone into there, I find quite attractive. Now, because I've done this, I'm going to keep this other arm tucked in there, but not put any water over it, because then I can put this middle section. I do tend to work this quickly. I'm not just doing this with you being here. It's a fast medium, but then again they take me years. So I always say I'm working the quickest medium, but I'm the slowest artist because I have them kicking around for sometimes 2 or 3 years before they're finished. I go back to the studio's full of half-finished work. See this blue and sienna, funny colours together. I've got some down here. Right, now this will be tucked onto here somehow underneath. And then, because I'll be doing another section here, the background, I'll then work out which one of these I like to be tucked underneath there. And that means I've got to make another line here to join in. This one then will come down here. still hasn't read. You might try it quite effectively, in fact. It might be like a collar or something. Yeah, lots of errors can be made into nice things. I'm just going to a bit more there just to pick out the details. In a way, these are like holding sections. Eyes or a face will hold the whole thing together. And then you can go wild in the other bits. If anyone knows Jenny Savile's work, you'll have a look at. She makes her eyes really realistic, and the rest is a complete splodginess. But she does it to hold the picture together. Again, these bits, they will take a little bit of paint and water on them to soften the edges. And then I'll go back into this as well.
Do you struggle with the decision when to stop?
Yeah, I remember going to a lecture by Howard Hodgkin. His work I admire greatly. And then someone said the same thing. He said, they tell me themselves when they're ready. He said, and at the time I thought, they're a bit pretentious,
Yeah.
And the whole lecture was a bit pretentious, to be honest. He wouldn't even have slides up. So he was talking about work, which we didn't know what the hell he was on about, because he said the slides aren't chromatically right. I thought that was a bit. But I do like his work. Okay, so this is just down here. Yeah, space. Now this area here, to me, is not right, because these two are too similar. So when you put them together, they're not going to look too good. So first, I've got to get some join the intersections here. See, this is in this heat today. This is like India again. This section is dry. Incredible. I don't know if anyone does know my work, but I often put figures within figures. Let's say after doing this, I will then put another figure that relates to that figure, so it might be a smaller figure. It might be a relationship, it might be something psychological, I don't know. And I got the idea of doing this because of this puddling. And going back into the studio late at night, I looked down at the pictures and I could see my own reflection in the painting. And I suddenly saw the outline of me onto the big figure, and that gave me the idea of transcribing figures onto the paintings. But you see, these are nice, and you get this sort of thing happening. This is really nice. This will dry beautifully. Fantastic colours. Not too happy with these orangey. this is another thing I always have to do. To stop them zooming off. The water change, I think. Right, so I'll try and get this on. This hand will need some extra work in. It's almost dried already. Yeah, it's not really bleeding. In a way, that looks interesting, doesn't it?
I was interested in what you were saying about mistakes. You know, what do you
Which are many.
consider mistakes? No, but what do you consider mistakes when it's such a loose way of working?
But people totally disagree with me. You know, they say, well, why did you rip that one out for? But I know. And then, otherwise, it's true, I work with errors all the time. I have to get the drawing completely wrong. That's the most interesting. And then when you put it together, you find nothing fits together if it's complex. I did one recently like this with the knees up. It's huge. It's about the size of that up there. And I got it so wrong the drawing. So when I put it together, it just whatever I did, I couldn't get it working. So you have to then repaint it. You see, it's great. Look the way I've hardly done anything to it. I've hardly touched it. And of course, if you go over it too much, you'll kill it stone dead. Which I see people doing all the time, doing this. See, I think this side is starting to work better than this side. But bear in mind, this goes all the way over here. You know, there's that join there is that. So that's I've got a leeway of that much. So I can turn this, plonk it on the worst bits there. It makes life a lot easier. But I've got to get this a bit better. No, that was good. I feel that there's a bit of richness creeping into this now. Now that nice sort of peculiar colour there, as they call it, would cement into there quite nice. I mean, I can play around with that. Now that is going to go on there, obviously. To do something with this. No, I don't know what. Hoping you're getting good close-ups. These are beautiful markings. I've made several films around my work, and we literally had the camera this close, and they're on my website, several of them. It looks quite explosive at times. Really. Now, I've hardly touched, I haven't done anything to that.
From this angle, it's like a tree with roots.
Yeah, well, yes, well, it's organic, isn't it? Everything is. You see, that's going to go into there really nicely, and I've hardly done anything. Excuse me. So. That could do with drying, otherwise I can't read. But I knew this would happen. I can't do too much. I can't slot them together because of the length of drying time. I think that one's going to be quite dark underneath there because that's really under the arm. You've got to make that go into there. Well, that one's it's coming along. Then you get sort of this happens. See these. That will dry like that with several layers. This is bled, so we make something of this. I mean, some of it might look really messy, but believe me, when it dries, it's going to look really nice. I just know the way these things are going to go. So I would literally slot that and dry underneath here like this, and then I would tear around here, and then stick it down with glue. So I'm stamping on the studio floor all the time, sticking in. And it takes me long to go up nowadays. It's very good exercise.
Are you working on the floor or are you working on a table?
Table on the floor. The studio floor is the painting.
Ah. I just thought you.
Yeah, the floorboards are covered with stained watercolour. Yeah, because they go off. They zoom off. You know. You go in, you think it's fine, then you go back 2 hours later, and the whole thing's gone. But I think because it's so warm, this is really. That's my favourite. The favourite bits there. I think that's working really well. This one could do some work and be a bit more drastic.
That's what you said about the paper at the beginning. It's a thick cotton or something?
It's rag paper, it's cotton, made out of westernised t-shirts. So, and I only found this out because I knew how rag paper was made. I didn't know, because they're made in India, I didn't know they imported all these second-hand or unsellable t-shirts. So it could be, I think, I laughed and say it could be Madonna or Metallica or something. I mean, it could be anything in here, But they just mush the whole thing up, and then they lay them on these sort of, wooden scrim things at an angle in the sun, and they get bleached that way. But I was one of the first to work with this village. It was Cardi Papers imported it, and that was 30 years ago, I think. And there's hardly anyone else working with this paper. So they used to rely on me to give them instructions back, to tell them what the quality of the paper was like. And sometimes it came through speckly, because it hadn't put enough size in. And you put the paint on, it would just go. You just never knew what was going to come back in the load. So they used me as a sort of testing thing. But the Cardi papers, because a lot of my work is quite essential, they don't show them most of the reproductions of the finished work. Which I thought was quite fun.
It's easy to get this paper. Can you find it easy?
Yes, it's imported from a place in Chichester called Cardi Papers.
Cardi?
Yeah, Cardi, K-H-A-D-I, which I think means paper in I'm not too sure, but it's in fact you can get it everywhere now. They've really come big. You know. Yes, they don't do this paper, but they do small things. See, this is like a necklace, it's a necklace of paint in a way, and that's going to be interesting. So again, this will dry really beautifully. So a lot of it is having confidence and thinking, I'll just leave that and see what the hell is going to happen. Right, I think that there's bits that are going to be working, and then what I'll then do is, when it's all dry, I'll then piece it together as a jigsaw, like I said, finish off these bits, which I can't do that one there because that just bleed all over the place. And then gradually repaint this a bit to make it, as I want it. But this is roughly the sort of stage I would finish it, really. If you're lucky, it goes beyond this, but it's very rarely. Things don't work like that. And of course, I'll get up on the wall because you can't see these things flat. You have to pin them up. Yeah, see that there? Look, it's like a curtain of. It's like a rhythmic something going on there. I thought that might be interesting. Again, this will go completely over here and up here a bit. They'll stop here, they'll leave this area, and that is a counterfoil to that.
It's kind of like blue sea creature or crustacean or prawn.
Yeah, well they are, yeah. It's very organic, isn't it? I mean, it's an organic process.
I see a profile of a face on the...
People always read, you can read other figures and faces into them. Simulacra, is it? I think that's what it's called. And you read into rock formations, you read faces. Yeah. But that makes them, when the fan things, that makes them interesting, because you're looking in. And that plays along with the idea of me putting other figures, overlapping with other figures in it. So you get these relationships going within the painting. So layer upon layer upon layer upon layer.
And it makes the imaginary work also.
Yeah, it makes your imagination work, your eye work, and and it's fun.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. So, when I used to do the massive, if you look at my earlier work, it's completely the opposite. It's the highly realistic works. And I had a very good career doing them. But it didn't give me the latitude that this does. It felt like A to B. I knew what I wanted. And this is a case of me painting it. With this, I don't know often how they're going to end up at all. They could drift off into another area, and I will go with the flow, literally. And that's what makes, for me, that makes art interesting. Because, I wake up every day thinking, what can I do? So, I think that's probably, I will have to leave that because. Any questions? Again, I've answered a few, but I'm willing to,
Sorry, I wasn't here at the beginning. Which type of paint do you use?
It's Winsor Newton watercolour.
Okay.
Yeah. I have tried others, but I started with these. I've continued with them. They're good quality.
Don't support us, don't say which brand.
They don't pay me. But I was really, I was very worried when I started, because we're talking, when did I first, 1982 or something, I did the first one. So it's a long time ago. And hardly any contemporary artists were working in watercolour. I mean, I don't even know if Clemente was. Clemente was one of the earliest artists I saw working in watercolour. In a very contemporary manner. There were lots of traditional ones, but other artists like Milena Juma, which people a lot of people compare my work to Lion Human. I wasn't aware of it at all until I exhibited it in Amsterdam in '94 or '6 or something. So, but I found she was. I don't think she was doing as early as me. She was a bit later. But you had no one to hit off against, no one to correspond with, no one to see what they were doing. And Clemente is about the only one I could find, really. And, yeah, what's the question? Oh, yeah, the paint. And so I was really worried about the longevity of the paint, whether it would fade or not, because I believe the image that I've been told about watercolours fading, you know, and that's because people used to use it really hardly anything there. Plus, the quality of the pigments have changed considerably.
So did you find that the early works did fade? Or?
No, I've done tests now. I've got a house in Italy as well, and often the temperatures there are 45 degrees, and they go then in the winter to absolutely freezing in the house because we haven't got any heating. So, and I've still got the paintings on the wall, and they're as crisp as the day I painted them. So I've used that as a template to see if it would change at all. We should never put paintings in ultraviolet light, daylight. I mean, that applies to oils, acrylics, or anything. Yeah. You should never do it. But,
how wide a sort of palette do you use? Do you quite
very limited. Very, very limited. I'm only dealing with 1, 2, 3, 4 colours here. I don't have to use many colours at all.
Do you use your hand to smudge it?
No, because you've got grease on your hands, and you'll end up, the paint will pick up that grease. And it just looks messy. I mean, this is extension of my hand, literally. So, and I feel very comfortable with this old brush. As you can see, if you saw, I was doing quite delicate areas, and that's with a big, even with that brush I've done delicate areas as well. See, they're very old because it's tape keep them together.
So after the first layer dries, are you straightening or ironing the paper, or you
No.
work with the curves there over there, because it will change how the ink
Yeah, no, because when we framed them, it's a fairly deep frame, so you can see all the irregular.
Right.
I like the tactile,
Yeah, but it does
the
change
visceral.
seconds, yeah.
Yeah. But this will flatten out because I finally got in the studio for a few days. That'll go down.
Okay.
I wouldn't need to do anything.
So are you waiting till those deep ponds as well completely dry before you
Yeah.
do another, or you?
Yeah, I would wait. I'll wait now for all this because I don't know what's going to happen. So I look at this now. You see, So if I like that,
Right.
I'll
okay.
maybe I can, or maybe I'll put another figure in around that. So it's quite, it's a different, as I said, I started off saying it was a different way of drawing and painting in a way. Because you haven't got a prescribed idea. You've got a tentative idea, but not necessarily an absolute prescribed one. Whereas my early work is totally prescribed, totally. Yeah.
Are you tempted to speed up the drying? With
No, someone else has with a hairdryer, because it moves the paint around.
Yeah.
And you won't get these nice things happening. It won't happen at all.
But you start with the original idea, the fact that you have a figure, a face.
I had the model. I was working with the model.
You never start from scratch.
No, I normally do a little one. That's my guide one. And I can work things out then. But it veers away from it often the small one completely, by the time you get to this stage. So it starts off with drawing books, and I do free drawings of ideas. The model then comes in, and I work the model. I do the small ones, and then it goes to the big ones. So it's like all these stages. But again, nothing is completely, it's not this, and this. Yeah. It really is, could go anywhere. I do go with the flow. I mean, it's an old phrase, but I do go with it. See, all this now, that's just, That to me now is starting to look interesting. This is drawing life size, and some of them were massive paintings. And I wanted to do the same, but using this technique. But then I couldn't find the paper. So they didn't make elephant-sized paper.
Is that why you started using?
That's I had to invent a way of working to make these huge, And the good thing, if I have a museum show, museums are better than the galleries. Then I can have them unframed. I persuade them now to have them unframed on the walls, and we pin them up. I put small tabs here. We pin them up, a bit, like this in a way. And I like that because you can really get one-to-one with the picture. And of course, they all said, well, what if it's raining, someone comes in with an umbrella and goes like this? Oh, it's never happened. And they think kids are going to go, but it never happened. People are respectful. So. But nowadays, of course, my gallery in New York, that's my main gallery now in New York. Because the money is so different. They put archival, non-reflective glass in, which is eye-watering in expense. So I've seen the bills and I just don't want to know. But it's beautiful because you're standing in front of this gigantic work and you can't see your reflection. It's absolutely amazing. That mouse is looking interesting now. You see, I don't know if anyone's noticed the way these are drying. Look, you see? No, I didn't do anything to that. It's gone in the show. Yeah? That's the sort of interesting thing that happened.
Brent, thank you very much for...
Not bad time, but about the hour.
It was beautiful, interesting.
Good.
And
it's a shame it can't see it all finished, I know that, but...
well, we said it will stay, and people can see it dry, and...
or I can put them on website as a finished thing, and then everyone can see that, So that's greendean.com if anyone wants to go to the website. Because that way you see what I'm going to do with it.
Thanks again. The next performance starting at 7. You have a little bit break to refresh. Come and see Lola and Yukao.
What is the name of the people?
Yes, K-H-A-D-R. They've got small. You try it out. But Cardinal, if you go online to Cardinal, they will deliver.
They will deliver. And they are in sometimes you start with our scene where you can basically just throw painting and water and you start to try
What was interesting was
from, as always, was coming from my practice in the studio itself or in the performance that I did. And I gradually understood that what is interesting me more and more lately is kind of like the layering of the parts. So I started, as you can see in the show itself, I started to save the materials and the remnants of the past performances that I did live and worked on it. And while I was working on it on different medium, I understood that this thing of kind of like shifting it from something that is very basic to something that is takes more time, or takes more layers, or takes more thinking about, is something that is interesting me to deal with. And in this festival, I was trying, when I organized it, to kind of like put different approaches to this thing. And there are quite a few directions. So one of the directions was working with a medium like watercolor that is kind of like make you sort of be performative in a way, because it's changing all the time. As the metal point is actually changing all the time because it's oxidized. A different approach is combining those layers with multimedia, with sound, and with gesture. And I think Chris called it augmented performative. So it's kind of like I like the idea of those two ends of approach living together this evening, and I hope you will enjoy it too.
Thank you so much, and we would like to thank you for inviting us. We applied in 2018. I think it was then, and Ram came back to us and she said, yes, now we can do it. So we're very, very happy to be here. We are called Lola and Yukao, and this is Yukao. I'm Lola. And we work as an audio studio, but as I heard, augmented performative drawing. We work in diverse ways together, and we have chosen to bring our performance to Lusa this time because Christian is working on Yukao, working differently with me. And I think we'll tell it after, right? We will show it. We also have a workshop tomorrow. I think it's at 2 o'clock. I think it was 2 to 4. So if you're interested in more trying out this drawing machine, then the direction between drawing and gestures and stuff.
Yes.
Medusa is the name of this woman in old ages Iceland who sits and goes to a trance. And there is this kind of myth about her going into a trance. She has a lot of young women around her singing into this trance. And then she started to talk about where does the world come from, where are we now, and where are we going to go. And when we read it, we found it was full of beautiful images that we wanted to transform into a poetic audiovisual performance. And we let you decide where the world is going until the end. So you're welcome to come and give us a little feedback what you think that she was telling. But yes, let's start.
like a healing in a very stressful time.
Actually, this is ending, it's kind of quite romantic ending. It has been kind of Christianized also, so this in the text there is a kind of renewal and everything starts again. And from the streaming, yes, but we have
your music.
yes, Lola and Yukao meets.
No, Lola actually.
Yes, but for our project together, yes, I can.
So they work together and work separately. And they work on different things. And it's multi.
Yeah, but this is Christian, mine is both.
Yeah.
And I'm from Denmark, and Christian is from France, but we live in France and work in France.
And we have a place that is welcoming residencies. So we don't have funding, but we have a nice space, and we're happy to host. We so far we only hosted residencies for our own projects, but we aim to extend it to other projects that more or less correspond to what we like to develop at the time.
We're very interested in other people who are working with Rowan, and combining it sound and music, and so we have a space for that in the room.
And we want to really extremely grateful to Ram for the huge work he made for getting some funding for the festival. He did a huge work, and
Thank you to come by train.
When we were making something, how structured are you choosing the key tonality first and then looking where it sound and like where, how do you kind of be able to say if you make stage sound, is this going to be like it? And you use how you really
I was also wondering if you have trace prepared also that you combine.
Yeah, well, it's good questions both. The sound I work on acoustic music, like the electroacoustics where I go and record and then I construct inside the computer. So all when I was not playing on my cello or singing, it was like a backtrack instead of working on for a year. So that is really constructed. And I've cut it up. It was a short piece in 15 minutes that I cut up to make it fit the long duration. And then when I play the loops, because I love playing loops, I mostly start very deep, and then I go higher and higher. Because I find that it adds some kind of brilliance to it. But when I'm singing, I start deep and then I go up and then I move a bit around. So it's, and I like when it's combined with what Yukao is doing, like I can see that it has an effect, and then I just want to do more. And then I forget about what I'm doing and just play. This is the good part. Yeah.
Just one point that is important is normally it's an octophonic piece, which means that you were supposed to be surrounded by the sound. So we wanted it to be both visually and sonically immersive. And normally there should be an array of 8 loudspeakers all around the audience. And but here was not feasible, but just come and watch another.
It's difficult to find places with 8 loudspeakers, so if you hear about a place and can host that, we were very happy to hear.
Did the project take you to Iceland? Did you go to get inspired by the
Not yet.
imagine the text and the imaginary?
Chris, can you talk a little bit about the marks itself? Because at one point it reminded me, I watched on Netflix this film about mushrooms.
Yeah.
And like the evolving and the dying and the growing.
But there is, at some point, you could see a bit stroke spreading, like there was kind of a bit like with ink and water in a way. And this is done by something that's called cellular automata, which are kind of systems where you grow from a stem and then you grow progressively, a bit like a tumor. Tumors can be modeled this way. You can use it also to model competing species which grow on the ground, and which will, so it's something that is used to model the growth. And I like it because it's difficult to control, actually. So I sometimes get out. It's a bit like what Graham was saying about water. I also like to be, because the risk with the digital is to be in a very formatted world where everything is under control and just expect what is going to happen. Here, I'm a bit uncertain about how loud it's going to be, because it's depending on the sound and how it's going to react, and so I like to be in this. So yes, there is something a bit mechanical, but that is not so much under control. That's what I like into it. And the tools that I use are the same as gamers for 3D, but I use it really in a bit different perspective for.
I very like. First of all, it was really trans. But I like the way that you paint digitally, but it's based on an organic branch. So I'm interested to know why the specific one. Is there any reason?
No.
Right.
It's also that I like the art to be a bit situated, so I have to collect things when I go to a place.
Okay.
So I have to find a branch, I have to find a few leaves. So this makes it a bit different every time, and it's a kind of reflection on the environment in which I am.
Okay.
So this was a dead flower just around the place, but I like the idea to collect a bit, to gather things around.
Yeah.
And also some of my practice, it's not here, but sometimes I also use the environment to project. So I can project on music instruments or on I use less and less screens, actually.
Because, I mean, for me, it seems like that branch had a second life in here. I don't know, that's how
You give an idea of a flow, but there is also something that interests me in the digital. When I remove the branch, you still see it. So
yeah.
It has to do also.
That's what I really like. It's difficult to photograph.
I think also when we are thinking about painting, it's always photographer says, or also sharing it on Instagram. While you get into painting, it's not working that much as others. So painting has its own way and rules. And when I try to photo those ones that are looking more painterly, Michal said to me, "It's not working," and I said, "Good, because this is painting and not drawing." So, yes, can you elaborate a little bit more about the tools that you were working with?
Yeah, I have a tablet. So this is a graphic tablet that people, for example, my daughter, who is a photographer, uses it to edit photographs. You can use it also to make mangas or cartoons, or it has many applications.
So it's a pen or a head?
It's a pen.
Yes,
it's a
and it connect to something?
Yes, it's connected to the computer. Everything is connected to the computer. I also have
to the projector.
Yes, and then to the projector. I also have a webcam here with the lights. So I draw. Here, this is the drawing that I was drawing for the sun. And since it was in a reverse color, you could see it orange, yellow in the middle, and white around. So. So these are the main tools. Then I have a tablet to control to adjust actually my effects to what's happening and check what's going on. So these are the major instruments.
Very basic question. To be able to have the screen that's around.
Yes. Well, I use a normal screen. But I just have what is called a mask that makes it circular. The purpose is also that we are surrounded by screens that are rectangular, and I find that I put it purposely on the floor, because then we are above the screen and not under the screen. I make it round and not rectangular, because then it looks a bit less like a screen. Because I find, well, you know this the board theory about that we have in the society of the performance and of the and I want to kind of reverse a bit the pattern, and that we are more like, I would say, a fire camp or something that has nothing to do.
Exactly.
That's something that doesn't have so much to do with the world of advertising and so on.
There was a moment in which it looked that you were building a fire there. We are surrounded the fire there.
But it also went together with the idea for Lusper, doing this as a kind of a community, sitting around this and listening to the story. So it fit well also.
And you go and sing, sort of whether you will do the countdown, 3, 2, 1, you do and sing. So the music at some point came with the image, although it's not directly connected.
Well, the backtrack, I aligned some of the scenes, graphic scenes with the backtrack. And then on top of this, she builds the loops.
Because it was nice when he was touching the chord and you could see the pulsing on there as we were touching. It just worked so well.
So I remember yesterday you told me that you are feeling like you are playing with the pencil. So how it happens to you?
Well, the fact is that I have the impression that when I work with musicians like Bo, that I'm part of the band in a way, and that I'm more in the spirit of another musician who has to play in tune with the other ones than someone who is making a work that we will hang on the wall in the end. But it doesn't mean that you don't have to hang it on the wall, you can do it, but my purpose is more to be in a way in sync and like if I would be a musician, I'm really listening to the music as if, and this week I'm going to develop it a bit in the workshop tomorrow, the different ways to listen to music and draw it together, because there are different ways of doing it. Some are very tight, some are more loose, more in, but it's interesting to see how, and reciprocally, Bo gets also an influence from my way of drawing on her way of playing.
But it was also because Chris, when he was younger, he wanted to play guitar, and he could play guitar, and he cannot really.
But
so
I was not
he invented the electric piano.
I was not very talented for music, so I had to find another way.
I think, Anji, you had a question too?
Oh, yes, it was the branch was, I believe, Angelica or Angelica.
It could be, yes. You mean the flowers? Yeah. In France, I think we make a kind of spirit out of it by putting this into alcohol, and it makes a drink. I think so. You're right. Yeah, it goes well with the theme, actually.
The other part of the material you got there.
Sorry?
The other part of the material that you were working with.
Yeah.
This.
These were flowers. These were leaves. These are the leaves that I was using for the river with the branch. So I'm interested in changing the scale a bit like there is a performer who came here with a drawing machine that changes the scale of what he's drawing. I also like the fact that with this, you really change the scale. Something that is microscopic becomes a bit bigger. Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, we're done for today, but there are 3 more days to go and workshops, so you're most welcome to join us then. See you. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much.